Today, I'm back here talking to you about the unconscious, actually. I love all of the things that I've heard so far, the ideas of curiosity and just kind of questioning and continuing to learn. So, hopefully, in this next little while, we can together explore and meet your unconscious. So, today we're going to talk about what your unconscious mind is, and I'm going to offer you a couple different types of experiences that you might begin to notice over the next little while, and hopefully find a way of connecting deeper with this part of you that really, I believe, is a very powerful part of you that can really change your life when you begin to understand it more and more. So, the first thing that I'll ask you all is right now, what's on your mind? Just think to this for yourself. What's on your mind, right? All of us kind of go through our days. We all have different responsibilities and things that we're doing in our lives. And I'm going to take a guess that maybe you might have something like this in your head. Thinking about school, maybe family, friends, time for play. I don't know if you still enjoy swings, but it's the best picture that I could find. So, this is kind of what happens in our head. Like, how do we balance all of these different things as we go through our day? So, I'm going to offer you first a way of kind of noticing how to understand what decisions are best for you. And that kind of comes from an unconscious part of you. And then after that, we're going to just talk a little bit about how to make sense of this mess. When there's so many things going on and you're feeling overwhelmed, it's easy to feel lost. So, in the next, I think I have about an hour, in the next little while, I'm going to go over a couple things with you. First, we'll talk about the unconscious mind and some of the unconscious experiences so you can begin to identify better what that is like for you. I'll talk to you about finding balance, what that means, and what that can feel like and look like for you. And then finally, practice, 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 practice. When I was growing up, they used to say practice makes perfect, and then I think I remember them saying perfect practice makes perfect. And then the more that you think about it, it's become practice makes progress, which I think is a lot nicer because perfection is something that often is very difficult to attain and it's almost impossible in some ways. It's something we can continue to strive for. And it really is progress that we're looking for. So let's jump into your unconscious mind. What is your unconscious mind? Well, your unconscious mind is your inner guide. You can think of it maybe as an inner voice or an inner experience. And there's some things about the unconscious that are really interesting. That, first of all, it's always listening and collecting information. So even as you're sitting here and listening to what I'm saying, it's collecting information. You can be listening and actively thinking about the words that I'm saying and what it all means. But at the same time, you might not necessarily be paying attention to some of the other things that are going on, like sitting up straight and breathing and beating your heart and all of these different things that just happen. So your unconscious is doing everything that it needs to uh, for you to be successful. The unconscious mind is this. So, your conscious mind, the part that you kind of think, where you hear like a conscious voice, sometimes an inner voice, it's actually a very small part of your experience. If you think of, maybe the last time, I don't know if you give out phone numbers anymore, but maybe like Instagram handles or something like that, which are probably easier to remember, but, spellings and all of this. It's very sometimes very easy to focus on one thing and then have everything else fall away. That's the conscious mind. It's really good for focusing into specific things, but understanding like the deeper kind of power of like where all the things happen inside your brain actually happens much more on an unconscious level. So, at an unconscious level, it's everything else. It's all of the other thought process feelings that you may be experiencing, as well as your body sensations and different feelings throughout your body. It's really things that you don't think about, but do have an effect on you. Which is to say, like your feelings, your thoughts, your emotions, these are things that you notice in your conscious mind, but really they start from a different place, which is the unconscious. So, anything that you're not consciously thinking about can be considered unconscious. What do you do with that information? Well, the idea is when you listen to your unconscious mind and you follow that guidance, your actions will be aligned. When you don't listen to your unconscious mind, then your actions can be misaligned. And misaligned doesn't necessarily mean wrong. It might not be an incorrect action. It just might not be the right one for you in that particular situation. So you can think about situations where you may have made a decision or you've done something and it just feels right. And then you may think about another situation where you may have made a decision and done something and it doesn't feel so right in that situation. So the idea is the right decisions for you will feel aligned, and your unconscious will move you and kind of signal to you that that's the way to go. On the other side, if you're kind of going against that, and sometimes what that feels like or can be experienced as is you might have an inside feeling that one way is the right way forward, but then in your mind you think you should do something else. And sometimes our minds are so loud that we follow it and we make decisions that aren't always the best for us. So let's get familiar with your unconscious. We're going to talk about now how your unconscious mind communicates. So what does that mean? This is a couple different experiences that you might have with your unconscious mind, and these are things that are outside of your thinking mind. So as I go through these couple of different examples, there's three main types that I'm going to or three main types of experiences I'm going to share with you, and you might consider whether or not you experience this for yourself. Okay? So the three main experiences are through emotional waves, through gut feelings, and then through intuition. These are the three main ways. There are a couple other different experiences as well, but these are the ones that are most common. I'll go through specifically what each one of these are. You might have combinations, so you might feel each of these things at different times, but most of us have one dominant type of sensation or way that we experience our unconscious. So let's start with the emotional waves. What is an emotional wave? Well, emotional waves is kind of a regular cycle or a feeling of emotions, kind of like up and down. So basically, your unconscious experience, you might find that you have days, or even as you move through your day, there are times when you naturally feel on a high of emotion, and then other times when you feel at a low of emotion. And oftentimes that's not really related to what might be happening. So you could be having a perfectly fine day and sometimes just feel a little bit lower, and you could be maybe having a not so good day, but feel generally okay. So that's one potential experience for people with that's one potential unconscious experience. About 50% of people will have this type of experience where you have a regular or kind of set cycle of emotions throughout. That was my alarm to wake up for 2 a.m. So some people have a set kind of emotional wave or cycle that is experienced throughout the day. So how does that affect your decisions? So what that means is when you're on a high of emotion, your unconscious may be a little bit more open and accepting of different opportunities or decisions. So you're riding high on the wave. Everything seems fun and great and sunny and rosy, and you might in those situations sometimes feel like, oh yeah, this is the right decision for me. And then later on, as you're coming down off of that high of emotion, you may kind of think and say, why did I agree to that thing? On the other side of it is when you're on the low of an emotional wave. And in that kind of experience, you may be more likely to say no to opportunities or decisions that might actually be really good for you. So then the the thing to look for here is neutral, which is when kind of the middle parts of the wave. And what happens there is basically the wave, the waters are calm, and you can see the island and you can see the beach. You know, you can hang out and sunbathe on the beach. You can enjoy the sun, and that is where the clarity of answer is. So if this is your experience, and you do feel like you have different experience, or you have a set kind of wave of emotions throughout your experience, you want to understand and just notice how your feelings affect whether you say yes or no. And then recognize the ups and downs, and then feel for what is right when the waters are calm. So look for that kind of neutral position. The ideal way here is understanding that it's okay to take time to make some decisions and to kind of listen and feel through what's right for you. You'll notice that it's not really, the decision making here is less about thinking about what's in your mind and your conscious thoughts of like, oh, yes, maybe I need to do this thing or that thing, and more about feeling through what the right decision is. Throughout all of these, it's not to say that you need to disregard what you're thinking and just follow what your body says. It's more of taking the time to notice when there is a misalignment in those things, and just see how that how the two different results would play out if you can kind of go back or make a decision over again. So the emotional wave one is a little bit more complex. The other two types are a little bit more straightforward, and you may resonate with one or both of these as well. The second type is gut feeling. So this is literally your gut talking to you. Maybe not with no or yes, but more of that feeling in your stomach, in that area of saying, like feeling it's the right thing. It's like a gut feeling or an instinct. Sometimes this can be associated with a sound like uh-huh or uh-uh, when things are right, either right for you or not right for you. So this actually happens a lot quicker, and it's almost instantaneous type of in the moment. When you are experiencing different, when you are faced with different decisions, you may feel and just feel that that decision is right for you. So you might just think in your experience if this type of thing resonates with you. There's a fair amount of people that also have this experience, and it's knowing that this is a signal, a way of communicating from your unconscious, where you are basically processing all the information, taking all the sights, the sounds, the feelings that you have, and you are then, your unconscious is communicating you through this gut feeling. So it's either a yes or a no feeling in your gut, and it might be accompanied with that sound that I had mentioned, like a uh-huh or an uh-uh. And it will become interesting for you to just notice when that happens, especially with bigger decisions in your life. So in all of these cases, you may experience these things on a day-to-day basis. The times when it's really important are when the decisions affect larger life decisions for you, such as where to work, what relationships you might be engaging in, like with friends and family, and then also with maybe where you want to live in the future. Understanding that these unconscious parts will also help with your decision-making process. The last one here is intuition. And this one is really interesting, I think. This is actually my main experience of my unconscious. And the intuition is really a instantaneous knowing in the now. And what that means is you feel like you somehow know what's right for you, but you don't really know how you know that. And when I first started experimenting or just understanding this and exploring it, it was actually interesting. It took a little bit of time to understand, like, oh, like I feel like this is the right thing, but usually I wouldn't do it that way. What happens if I do it that way? And the more that I began to listen and follow that, the easier my decisions became. The other way that I'll explain this is like when you're following your intuition, it's like walking around a room with the lights on and your eyes are open. So you can see where everything is and you can kind of make the decisions. Like I'm not gonna like knock over the guitar in the corner, walk into the plant. If I go upstairs, I can take each step and I can hold on to the handrails. If you're ignoring your intuition, it's kind of like putting a blindfold on and then trying to walk around. You know that there are things around you, and then you're just ignoring them. So then you're walking around a room, the lights are on, um, but you're just choosing not to see. So it can be a little bit interesting or different to notice how your intuition, if you are having this particular type of experience, sometimes it's good to trust in that, to know that you know. So, with this third experience, it's about trusting your instinct. It's knowing whether something is right or wrong with you and understanding how to trust into that. You may not know how you know, but you know. And that's this particular type of experience. I can pause there for a moment and just see if you have any questions actually about any of those. And if not, that's absolutely fine. You could throw some comments in the chat, and I'd be um, happy to give you some further information on it. What I'm going to do is,
Jonathan,
yes, hi,
yes, I have a question
yes, please.
regarding the intuition.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the same like the sixth sense?
Hmm. I suppose you could consider it like a sixth sense. Like all of these things kind of are senses outside of our other senses. Um, if you frame it like that, this one is probably the closest, where it's like you somehow know without knowing how you know. Um, if that makes sense. So in a way, yes, it's not like predicting the future. It's more like just knowing that based on the information that you've received, that the decision that you feel is right for you is the decision that's right for you. Does that make sense?
Okay, it's like when we meet somebody new, and we feel sometimes we feel that person. Oh, this someone is very nice person, and we can have the vibe to get to know that person. Or
Yeah.
sometimes we meet somebody that we feel like he has a negative energy. That oh, something wrong. Even he was trying to get close to you, you feel like oh, there's something fishy is going on here. And that's kind of we can call it institution in this like the
Mm-hmm.
feeling
Yeah. Yeah.
of like what you say.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's two things that are happening there. There is that one intuition of knowing what's best for you. So, in actually all of these three cases, you could kind of use that situation to understand whether that relationship is right for you. So, for whether or not you're having that experience of oops, whether you're having that experience of like knowing instantly that this person is right for you, that's more along the lines of that instinct or intuition. You might have a gut feeling that the person is right for you or not right for you. And that is more of that gut instinct. And then sometimes it's you meet a person in a certain situation. Let's say it's at a party and everything's great, and you're like, this person's wonderful. And then later on, when things kind of calm down, you step back and maybe you decide, okay, something wasn't right. The other side of it could happen as well. Maybe you're on a low and you're having a bad day, and you're like, oh, like this person that I just met is not really that cool. But then, as kind of things come up and you get to know them better, when you're at that neutral clarity in that moment, you have a better understanding of, oh, actually, this person is right for me. So, all of those three types of experiences can happen. I would say that all of us have different experiences. So, while many of us may share certain ones, um, sometimes I find that when talking about this type of experience, um, a particular slice of the experience resonates better with certain people. So, like some of you in this room might have had that experience where you meet someone and you know that this person is like two thumbs up, and you go ahead and you continue to have a relationship. You become great friends, and that's really great. You just know from the start that this is going to work out. Others might have that gut feeling of like, oh yeah, like this feels right. And that feeling kind of comes a little bit more deep down in that gut area. And then the same thing, all is well. And then there's that third experience where it might take a little bit of time. And all of these experiences are absolutely okay. They're absolutely natural, natural shades of our human experience. Thanks for that question. Any other thoughts, questions?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm,
If
please.
our gut feeling is so strong, like I mean not our gut feeling, our instincts are so strong to know something, why don't we ever listen to it? Like some people just don't listen to their gut feeling. Like if it's so strong, it's like literally giving the answer why you don't listen to it.
Yeah, that's a really great question. I would say that the main reason is probably we're not raised to, and we're not kind of brought up or taught to trust in those instincts. Um, I don't think that anybody. I don't think that anybody in my life has ever really said that, hey, like, look, you have these three different types, figure out what type you have, and then trust that instinct. Uh, so what actually happens instead is what we tend to do is listen, take in the information, write it down, make a list of pros and cons, sit there and try and think through all the decisions. And then we get into that kind of jumbled mess of like, oh, but like maybe if I do this thing, I'll have like 5% better result. If I do this thing, then, and then you start weighing all of these different ideas. And sometimes that's where we get stuck. It makes, I guess it doesn't make intuitive sense sometimes to follow something that's other than your mind. So it's like if you have thoughts and you think, I think this is the right answer. Thinking something is the right answer and then having it actually be the right answer are two different things. So I would say the reason that we don't follow it is maybe because we don't spend enough time getting familiar with it to experiment with it. And it often is because there can be a lot of noise around where, for example, if there's, I'm trying to think of a good specific example, but if there's something that you wanted to do and everybody around you is saying, it's not the right thing to do, don't do it, but in your gut, you know that it's the right thing for you, you may tend to follow the advice of the people around you. And there is merit to that because there's people around you, they may have more experience, but sometimes they might not know what the right thing for you specifically might be. Thanks for that question. Did you have any follow-ups on that? Or if there's any other questions? What I'm going to do next, actually, is I'm going to talk about what it feels like or the different experiences of what alignment feels like. So, what that means is as you are experiencing and just kind of going through your days making decisions, what does it feel like when you're making decisions that are right for you? We'll talk about what it feels like when it's right and what it feels like when it's not right for you. So, where did my mouse go? Okay. So, what does aligned feel like? So, when you're following your, uh, following that, um, when you're going through your life making decisions, you can either think follow your gut feelings or do what you think is the right thing to do. And it can either happen both ways. Like what you think could be matching with how you feel, and sometimes it doesn't. So I'm going to show you a picture of you in a moment, and it's like a conceptual image. So just imagine. So this is you, okay? This circle is you. It's all of your being, all of your thoughts, your feelings, and your emotions, experience. The signature core for you is in the middle. That's that yellow dot. And when you're in the middle, you have balance, you have stability, you have comfort, everything feels stable. Outside of that is the not self. And we end up in that space when we aren't our when we're making decisions that are not aligned with ourselves. And it doesn't mean that you're being other than yourself. You're having a very specific experience. It's just something that's off of center. So you just may not feel like your best self. So, what does not self and what does signature mean? And there are kind of very specific kind of experiences that kind of move you to understanding what your not self experience is, and then what your signature feeling would be. I'm going to talk about the not self first, and it'll be interesting to see which ones of these might align with all of you today. So the not self can be experienced in a number of different ways. Usually, we can feel all of these different emotions, but one of these might dominate your experience, which is to say, when things don't go right for you, you may feel more frustration, where it's like, why aren't things working out for me? I'm putting all my energy into this and I'm not getting the results that I want, or I'm not seeing what I want to see. You might also feel bitterness, which is maybe feeling like you're not being recognized, like other people are getting noticed and getting the recognition, and you feel like maybe just in the background. There's anger, which is you're trying to do things the way that you want to do them, but because of outside forces, maybe they're moving you away from that, and that causes anger. And then finally, disappointment. Just feeling like you're not in the right place, not doing the right thing, that not doing the right thing for you. So these are a couple different ways that you might experience the not self. One of these might resonate with you a little bit more. So when you are noticing that you're experiencing one of these, whether it's frustration, bitterness, anger, or disappointment, the thing to think there is consider what decisions you've made that led up into this present experience that you're having. And it's not to go back and assign blame and say, oh, I should have done that or I should have done this. It's more to understand that whether or not the choices you made were aligned with what you were thinking, or if it was aligned with what you were feeling. And it becomes really interesting when you look back at past decisions and past situations that might have put you into one of these feelings, to consider whether there was a kind of communication from your unconscious to say, maybe do option B and not do option A, which is the option that you've come through thinking, through your mind, through what other people tell you you should do. And then when you can recognize that, that is almost a message to say that, yeah, I can maybe trust my unconscious, my gut instinct, my intuition, or my noticing and feeling through my emotional waves. The other experience, which is the signature theme, are these. So when you are making decisions that are aligned with you, that are right for you, you might find that you're feeling satisfaction, feeling success, feeling at peace, or just feeling surprised at the outcome. Like, wow, everything is kind of right in place. So satisfaction is pretty straightforward. You've put in the energy, you've put in the work, and now you see the result, and there's a satisfaction. You can sit back and look at everything that you've built and just enjoy. Success is not specifically monetary or material success. It's more a personal success. And I would describe that almost feeling like moving through life effortlessly. Peace is just feeling like you are able to do what you want to do in the way that you want to do it. And it just brings peace. You can be doing and moving through all sorts of different situations, moving through in the way that is ideal for you and that puts you at peace. And then, of course, surprise is things just working out and turning out in the ways that maybe you didn't really expect them to, which is also really nice. So the idea here is when you are following your unconscious and learning to listen and connect with that, the more that you follow that, the more that it will move you towards these experiences of your particular signature. Signature is alignment, and alignment is balance. So thinking back to that diagram of the circle in the middle, if it was 3D, you would be spinning in the middle when you are feeling at your center, at your core, so that you can be spinning in perfect alignment, in perfect balance. If you're feeling kind of outside of yourself in terms of feeling like that not self, it's not that you've fallen over, and it's not that the top falls over off the table and stops spinning. It just might be a little bit off center and wobbly, which is okay, because then you can always correct it and come back to the center. So really understanding and just thinking through and reflecting on your experience will help you get more into alignment with what your unconscious is guiding you towards. And then you can begin to make decisions that are much more aligned with you. So how do you find balance? So now I've given you a bunch of information of what your unconscious experience might be. How do you find balance? When you're faced with a day like a mind full of all these different things, what do? So with many complex things, when there's a lot of things going down, it's helpful to break it down and put it into steps. So I'll offer you these 4 steps. So first is understanding what decisions you have to make. Next is listening or experiencing or feeling for what your unconscious mind says. Of course, your thoughts will be going as well, so you can make a comparison there and then make a decision. After you make a decision, then reflect on it, see whether the decision moved you towards your signature or moved you towards your not self, and then adjust accordingly. So for example, if you follow like, oh, I think I should do this, but you feel like you should do another thing, do what you think you should do and see how you feel after that. Then the next time you're making a decision, you might choose to follow your unconscious. And as a result of following that, you might have a better result. So the first thing is to take all your decisions and just understand the decisions that you are making. So rather than looking at all of these different things and kind of bouncing from one, like, oh, like I have a homework, I have tests to do, but I want to go see my family, and then I want to watch a movie, as well as I want to go out and like meet my friends, maybe at the mall or wherever. Then you kind of go and you're weighing all of these things against each other, and oh, but if I study this much time, then I'll have that much time left to go and do this. And then now you're just doing calculations, and then it becomes a little bit complicated. The easier way is to split all of these decisions out into specific decisions. Think about, do I want to sit down and with the family watch a movie right now? Do I have time? Can I make it to go to this this outing, this big family gathering? Do I have time to go out and go on the swing set? And is it time for study? Is it time for doing my homework? If you split out all of these decisions and check in with your unconscious, you can then feel when is the right time for each of these things. When you have fun decisions, it's easy to say yes to them, and you may always want to say yes, right? It's easy to go out and have fun. At the same time, listen to your unconscious. I'm not sure if you've had the experience of going and doing something fun when you know that you probably are better served doing something else. Um, if your unconscious is saying no, there might be a good reason, because sometimes it's time to do homework. So think about that and be honest with yourself. This is the part that sometimes is a little bit difficult, of saying no to things that are fun, but the no is actually what's better for you. And your unconscious will guide you towards that. Our minds will think of a billion reasons, million, billion, trillion reasons if you sit there for long enough. Um, if you sit there for long enough, and maybe convince you into doing something that you want to do, but you know that it's not the right time to do. Other decisions are easy to say no to. So, do I study tonight? Do I do my homework tonight? It's easy to kind of say, I don't want to do these things now. And sometimes it's okay to not want to do it in that specific moment. Trust yourself, though, and do what you need to do, which means if in this moment you're really feeling that it's not the right thing for you to do, maybe take a break, right? I don't know if you've had this experience as well, of sitting in front of books and just acting like you're studying, but not actually studying. I know that I have. So when I notice that I'm in that space, if I'm reading something, if I'm doing something and I'm losing interest in it, just taking a detour, doing something different for some time, and then coming back to it will make not only the work much more effective, but also my experience of the work a lot more pleasant. And yeah, really, sometimes it is time to do homework. I assume you all probably have homework. I'm actually in school right now, so I have homework as well. And sometimes I don't feel like doing it. And other times I know that I have to do it. Now, thank you for the question earlier about why we don't get around to doing some of these things. And it's oftentimes because of our thoughts. We think about a lot of different things in between doing what we need to do, where there's things like procrastinating, self-doubt, feeling frustrated, feeling stress and anxiety of all the things that have to happen. After doing certain things, you might have some positive feelings as well, like pride and satisfaction and relief from having things finished. A lot of times those negative thoughts and feelings are a lot louder, and that's kind of what comes through. What I would ask you to consider is, when you're in those situations, do any of these thoughts actually help you do what you need to do better? When you're studying, does it help that you're thinking maybe like, I'm not going to have enough time, and I still don't remember this or that? Is that a good use of that time? Because that's almost a decision that you can make of whether or not you want to be thinking that in that particular moment. So what you could do is, first off, just acknowledge that you are having a specific thought or a certain thought. And then you can check in with your unconscious two things. One is, do I need to be thinking this or feeling this right now? The answer might be yes, and that's okay. If the answer is yes, the next question is, what is this thought actually telling me? If it's sometimes like self-doubt or anxiety around maybe studying for an exam, you might be feeling that you just need to focus on studying more. And knowing that you're going to spend the time that you need to study can relieve that stress and relieve that self-doubt. But sometimes we get stuck in that thought cycle, and we, rather than studying and using our energy and capacity to do the things we need to do, we spend a lot of energy just kind of spinning around and doing everything else, whether it's procrastinating or just feeling stressed out and anxious. So a couple different questions to ask. Here's a couple more questions that you can ask. First, there are some reflection questions. Do I need to feel this right now? What's this feeling telling me? And will feeling this way help me get to my goal? Then there's exploration questions, where you can begin to move into a different space or a different experience, which is to say, how would you rather feel? How would I rather feel right now? What other feelings do I actually feel? Whether you have one predominantly negative emotion that's kind of taking over your thoughts. Are there other feelings in there? And what happens if you begin to focus on those feelings? And then how can I feel differently right now? What would you need to do? Would you need to maybe take some deep breaths, kind of consider your breathing, maybe get up, go for a walk, or stand and shake it off? And then action. What would you like to have happen? In this moment, would you like to sit in front of your books and just stress? Or would you like something else to happen? Being specific with what outcome you'd like I want to study, right? I want to study is a better way of thinking than I don't want to fail. I don't want to fail this exam is something that you do not want, but it doesn't tell you what you actually want. Does it mean you want to pass the exam by 1%? Do you want to get a really good mark, right? So having a specific want, understanding what you would like to have happen becomes very powerful. So specifically in that piece of taking action, when you are trying to decide on a goal or what you want, notice when you're framing it negatively, which is to say something like, I don't want to fail, and say it in a different way of, I want to study and learn this material so I can do well on my exam. The other question that you can ask yourself is, what small step will I do now to move me towards my goal? And sometimes it's, if, for example, studying for a big final exam, if you're studying for a final exam, you might be thinking like, oh my God, there's going to be however many, like 100 questions, and I have to get every single one right. And it's on 15 different topics. Well, what's one small step that you can do to move towards your goal? Maybe start studying the piece of the material that you're least familiar with. And you do that one thing and you get familiar with it. And then you kind of move on and you continue taking steps. Asking your questions here, understanding how your unconscious answers, and then trusting that answer will make it a lot easier to let go of those things, those thoughts that hold you back, the thoughts that take up a lot of energy, and help you focus on the task that you need to do, that you would like to do for yourself. So finally, we'll just round off, and I'll round off this by just saying practice makes progress. Practice listening to your unconscious. The more that you do it, the more that you get familiar, the more easier it will become. So the steps to practice really are these 4 steps. So the understanding the decisions that you have to make is becoming aware of the different decisions that you are actually making every single day. Considering what your unconscious mind is saying, and that step is really about just acknowledging what that experience is. Making a decision is letting go of all the decisions that you have decided not to make, and sticking ahead with the one that you want to make, and then reflect and adjust. It's just repeating. So going back and looking and thinking about the different things that you have experienced, and then seeing whether you want to adjust or not. So becoming aware is just, again, noticing all the decisions that you're making. Notice all the decisions that you are making without thinking as well. Sometimes we go about our lives without thinking, almost on autopilot. And even though we aren't thinking about making specific decisions, those are still decisions that you're making. Anything that you decide, you can change. And this really brings that control back within your hands. So know that, if there is something that you do on an everyday basis and you're like, I don't want to do this anymore, well, if you continue doing it, that's your decision to go ahead and continue doing that. That's one place where you can check in with your unconscious and say, is this actually like what I want to be doing? And if not, what would I rather be doing? So anything you are deciding, you can change. The acknowledgement piece is simply acknowledgement. It's saying, yes, I am having this experience. Observe your thoughts, feelings, and emotions and accept them. Sometimes it's when you have negative emotions, when you're experiencing something that's not so pleasant, it's easy to push them away and say, I don't want this. If I'm feeling sad, I don't want to feel sad and I want to push it away. If I'm feeling angry or upset, anxious, any of those things, and you want to push them away, what actually happens is you almost keep them coming towards you. The easiest way is to notice these feelings and say, yes, I am feeling, let's say, I'm feeling anxious right now. Let's say I'm saying I'm feeling nervous about coming onto camera, coming on to give this presentation. And that's okay because that's a natural experience. I'm experiencing it. Um, it's the idea between natural versus normal. The idea of normal is like a measuring stick. It's kind of like almost a moving mark sometimes, because what really does normal mean? But if it's something that you're experiencing, it's a natural experience. And to accept it as natural is just what this step is about. Just acknowledge and say, yes, I am experiencing this thing right now. And when you take ownership of your feelings, then you take control over them. Then you can say, yes, I'm feeling this right now. And then you can also know that in the next moment, you can be feeling something differently. And that's where letting go comes in. You can decide on one action and then let go of all the rest. So if you're feeling anxious in the moment, you can acknowledge and say, yes, I'm feeling this. And then with your unconscious, you might decide, oh, like this is just telling me that I need to prepare. So then what's the right action? Maybe to go and prepare. Decide to go ahead and prepare, and then let go of everything else, including that kind of experience of feeling anxious. When you commit to your action and you let go of everything else, that commitment will help you create alignment. And then finally, you can repeat. So just basically go through, notice the different decisions that you've made, notice how they make you feel, right? Is it feeling your not self? Is it feeling into your signature? And then repeat again. You can make different decisions if you want to feel differently, right? This is in your control. Practice, practice, practice listening to yourself. The more that you practice, the more you'll experience that feeling of trust where, yes, I can trust in this feeling. I can trust in this emotion. I can trust in my unconscious. And the more that you experience, the more that you trust, the easier it will become to listen to your unconscious and to hear it. So that brings me to the end of my workshop here. The Again, open the lines of communication, understand and experience and play around with this different experience. See what resonates with you. And this is a very personal experience. It's interesting to talk about the experience with other people of saying, oh, you experience it this way, I experience it this way. And all of that is a-okay. Your unconscious will guide you towards your purpose. And the more that you practice and experiment and practice again, the easier all of this will become. So trust yourself to decide. And I'll leave you with this thought. I don't know if you realize you are the author of your story. It's in your control. It's for you to decide. So choose wisely. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions that you might have and open up the floor.
Nathan, I love the statements that you are the author of your story. So wonderful. And question is, can you explain what's the meaning of unconscious or the difference between unconscious and conscious, so that to clarify, so that the audience will understand what you are talking about?
Absolutely. So the conscious is really the part of you that you can notice thinking. So it's, if you were trying to keep things in your mind, that's the conscious part of you. You're noticing specific things. So for example, you're watching the camera, you see me on screen, you're hearing my voice, you can notice my voice. You might feel that you're sitting in a chair. These things are all conscious to you because you're aware of them. Your unconscious is what you're not aware of, and it's almost like the things that are coming up without you thinking. It can include body senses. So like you're sitting, your posture, you're not thinking about how your muscles are tensing up and holding and all of this. Um, it can include like your breathing and your heart rate and all of this. A good example to kind of like think about the difference here is think about walking. right? If you were to get up right now and walk out of your room, you would think consciously that I want to get out of the room, or somebody has asked me to leave the room. So what are you going to do? You're going to, kind of rearrange your chair, stand up, look around, find the exit, and go. All of that is your conscious direction. You're looking for the exit. What you're not thinking of is, oh, I need to tense one leg and relax the other leg, and then kind of hold my back up straight and then turn my body. You're not thinking all of those things. All of those things happen unconsciously. So, really, the unconscious is like the parts that you don't have to think about. And how that relates to all of this content that I had just shared with you is the idea is you're you're taking in all this information and you're getting output from your unconscious all the time. So think of it like if you were walking and you kicked something with your toe, like you stub your toe, your body is going to tell you. You don't have to think about that reaction. Your unconscious is communicating, hey, you've hit something. So it's the same way of making decisions. You're gathering all this information, and whatever way that it is, your unconscious is sharing this with you. It's saying, hey, this is what I think you should do with it. And then, of course, it's up to you to decide what you'd like to do with it. That's kind of the fun part of our experience, where we can consciously decide to go against ourselves for whatever reason. And sometimes there's something to learn in there, right? We could be exposed to different experiences and all of that. It's definitely a process. Does that help clarify things?
Cool. Thank you so much. And yeah, you mentioned that you got some experience with your intuition. Can you share with us your experience, like what happened and how you practice to improve your intuition or your unconscious?
Mm-hmm. So the intuition actually is really interesting because it's like this knowing. So it's almost like I want to say like having to trust it. And the first step of trusting it is just to notice that it's happening. What I did myself actually was ask myself a lot of questions, specific questions. So, kind of like, what does this mean? And then see what answer comes up. And it was interesting because there was always some type of answer. And sometimes it was a little bit odd or like I don't really understand, but it always made sense in the end. The other part of it is then in terms of like decision making of like what decision should I make right now. The more that I've trusted in that, the more that I felt like I could rely on that intuition. So, for example, actually, when you reached out to me to provide this workshop, that was a good example. So, we all have busy lives and there's all sorts of things going on. I mentioned that I'm back in school. I have a weekend of school next week. So then when you messaged me, I knew that the answer was yes. In my mind, I was thinking, will I have time? Will I have time to put together a presentation that would make sense, that would be interesting, and all of these things? And I could have sat there and thought probably for the whole week if I wanted to. And then if I said no, I would have, this time would have passed, and I would have been kicking myself. Like I really wanted to do this presentation, um, but that intuition piece kind of just said this is the right thing to do. Everything else I can handle, and I knew that in the moment. So the more, I guess it's really that piece of practice. When I first started, when I first started exploring this, it was a little bit of like, is this actually supposed to work for me? I wasn't sure. Uh, and what I noticed was it did help me move more into that signature feeling of success. That's the kind of experience for me of knowing the decision that I make moves me in a way that's successful in terms of not creating friction in my life, if that makes sense.
Cool, cool, cool. All right. Now, can you help the audience? Because most of the audience here, they are still not sure about what they're going to study or what they're going to do. Either they're going to be a doctor, lawyer, or they're going to take A level or matriculation, or which university they're going to go. So they are still in the have the self doubt, or some of them have like kind of procrastination when they want to study. So can you give like one example, life example now, do with them how they can train their unconscious mind to help them to make the right decision, so in order for them to choose or to help them to find what's the best for them to study or to do in their life.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so I think this is actually an interesting topic because um, I know that there are sometimes people that make decisions, and actually, the way that we live our lives and things go now is we may not find ourselves in one particular career for the rest of our lives, and that's absolutely okay. I think knowing what decision you have to make in this moment and going ahead with that, with the kind of um, understanding that you can go and do this thing fully and experience it. And once you get into it, you might feel like it's the right thing for you, or it might not be the right thing for you. And knowing that it's okay to then make a change. I think that's one thing that's really important. It's good to have a direction. It's good to understand where you go. You're also all just in this process of growing up and having new experiences and expanded experiences as well. So, what can take the pressure off is you can always decide to change what you want to do. So, for example, I when I went through school, I my father's a doctor. He always said, "Become a doctor." And I went to school and I didn't get the marks, so I didn't become a doctor. Instead, he said, "Oh, try pharmacy. That's a great career." So I did that, and I ended up becoming a pharmacist, and I love it. It's really helped me connect with a lot of different people. But even within that profession, I used to work in one particular type of pharmacy. And after some time, I thought that I would be, when I first entered into that job, I thought that would be my forever job. I would work there for my whole life and then I would retire. And then I don't know what I would do with my life at that point. I just, I don't know, sit at home and watch TV maybe. But I ended up changing that career, right? I went from this is what I want to do for the rest of my life to I don't want to do this anymore. And at that point, I could have made two decisions. One is to stick with it. Because I made that decision 10 years ago, I'm going to stick with it and I'm not going to change. And the other decision is to leave and do something else. To leave and do something else was the right decision for me. It's actually opened up more opportunities for me. It's put me into more different spaces and it's allowed me to grow and expand. Maybe this is a good time to share with you this thought of the, and I'm not sure if you've heard this before, but the idea that you are enough. You are enough. In this present moment, you are 100% enough, every single one of you. Everything that has happened with you in your life before has built you up into this present state where you're at. And everything that you will do will continue to add on and help you grow. It's not necessarily, and I don't believe that it's about being better, because sometimes thinking that, oh, I need to be better means you're saying to yourself, I'm not good enough right now. All of you absolutely are good enough. You are more than good enough. The idea there to understand is it's not about getting better, it's about growing. It's about having more experiences. It's about expanding into the world. So when you go and approach all of your studies, whether it's school studies, whether it's your personal interests, whether it's extracurriculars, like if there's a sport and you want to get better at it, right? That makes sense. But then you're also expanding your skill set. You're expanding your knowledge. You're learning more. So every time that you do more and more, you're simply just expanding that and growing. So remember, anytime that you feel that you need to be better because you're not good enough, remind yourself that you are enough and you will continue to grow and expand. That's simply what we do in this life.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to ask questions? Please, if you have anything related to your mind or any issues that you have in your mind that you want to share, please do share with us.